What's up, party people? It's been a few weeks. I really don't like doing YouTubes, as I've said many, many times, but I am here with an update, mostly on PRTA. I'm trying to look at the camera and not at me. I have a boo-boo on my nose, if you're wondering what the hell that is. Nothing like having a big nose with a little red dot at the end of it. Really makes me look attractive. Anyway, yeah, no live YouTubes right now. I got all the kids home from school still, and I just don't like doing them. I don't know. I guess I'm finally sick of hearing myself talk. So let's do a really quickish update on PRTA and anything else I want to talk about. So obviously PRTA has worked phenomenally well, especially from a risk-adjusted standpoint, because that's kind of how you have to look at everything. This idea was originally trading for below cash with a bunch of assets attached to it, and we fast forward to today, and pretty much everything has gone our way, right? Roche is going forward with the Parkinson's drug, which has an extremely high NPV. I think it's probably a 75% chance that phase 3 is successful. And I think it's worth anywhere between $5 and $15 a share today alone. And then you have the two Bristol Myers drugs. One of them is in a phase 2 that reads out in 2027. And then you have the phase 1 Bristol Myers drug that will read out, at the beginning of 2026. That will give you another dollar if they move forward to phase 2. And then finally, you have the news from today that Novo is going to go forward in ATTRCM. We know about ATTRCM. That's our Bridge Bio baby. And that triggered a dollar milestone payment, 90 cents milestone payment, and also has $18 in undiscounted, not risked value for future milestones and sales and clinical and everything. So if you add it all together, you get to $6.30 in cash at the end of 2025. So I'm counting 5 months worth of burn. They're going to have a lot of burn still to finish the 012 trial and to finish the BMY phase 1 trial. So $6.30 in cash. You have a Roche partnership that I think is worth between $5 and $15 a share. That, of course, will go up as the years progress and we get closer to a readout there. That's still probably 3 years away before you see a readout there. They're not going to launch the phase 3 until later this year, and it might take 3 years to read out. And then finally, you have the two Bristol Myers drugs that I think are worth. The phase 2 drug is probably worth between $2 and $4 a share today, and the phase 1 drug is probably worth between $1 and $2 a share today. You add it all together, and right now the EV, the stock's 780. The EV is $1.50. So you have a $1.50 EV with a huge margin of safety with the cash balance and these 4 different potential blockbuster drugs. Of course, the BMY drugs are in early staging, but the other 2 are in phase 3. So huge fan of PRTA. I have not sold any stock. It's my biggest position. It's a big position. It's like 40%, all common. And I think fair value is north of $10 today, and I arrive at that because if it was $10 today, I would not be selling any of it, right? So I'd be a buyer at $10. And I would get to that because I would say you're paying about $4 for a Roche drug that I think is extremely valuable, worth between 5 and 15. And then the two BMY drugs worth between 3 and 5 combined. Again, only to go up as time goes on. And then finally, the Novo drug, that's worth $18, undiscounted, unrisked. I mean, that's probably worth $1 to $2 today versus the 18 it could be worth over the next, 5 to 10 years if it gets approved and probably becomes a blockbuster drug. So, love it. Completely uncorrelated to the rest of the stock market. You're going to get this month 012 data, which, of course, I haven't even mentioned because I think that's worthless. And I don't believe they will spend any of their own money on that. They use the phrase non-dilutive funding will be needed to bring it forward. To me, that means that they won't use their own cash. Of course, it means they won't do any capital raises. But I am still looking to connect with management to confirm that the cash won't be spent on 012. I'm virtually certain of that. But I just want to be crystal clear and hear it from from their mouths. I'm hoping to connect with them after 012 data is released. You also have 123 123 that I value at 0. So what are your biggest risks here? Your biggest risks are still the same as always, that they burn a lot of the $350 million that they have at the end of the year, and they don't return the vast majority of that to shareholders. The good news is your margin of safety is pretty high. Even if they burn 150 of that 350, that would shave $3 off of my ultimate sum of the parts. The 200 is worth about $4 a share, again, versus your $8 a share now. So in that case, you would be paying $4 today in an EV for the 4 partner drugs. It's very undervalued, even in that scenario where I have them burning 150 million more starting in January, which I don't think they'll do. So that's PRTA. My second biggest position, which is still almost as big as that, is Surgery Partners, SGRY. They reported earnings. They guided to the full year EBITDA slightly below their midpoint because they haven't done as much M&A as they expected. But besides that, which I don't think is a big deal at all, that's totally a timing issue. I thought that the numbers were really good. I think it's a really defensive stock, given that it's, again, completely uncorrelated to tariffs, completely uncorrelated to the economy, and has tons of tailwinds with the fact that it's interesting. It's the only company I could think of in the healthcare business where payers are for it because they save lots of money for you having surgeries there versus hospitals. Patients are for it. I would much rather go to an off-site surgery facility than go to a bloated, smelly, sick hospital to have my minor day in, day out surgery. And then finally, doctors are for it. So every single one of those 3 constituents want you to have your surgeries there versus in a hospital. So that's a great setup. There shouldn't be any Congress risk from a funding standpoint. And it's really crowded. There's like 12 million shares short. And if you look at the holder list, there's tons of chunky 5 to 10% long only shareholders that are not selling. So it won't take much to make this thing squeeze. And I think that their analyst day should be a catalyst. Now, look, I'm a bag holder here. The purpose of this was a squeeze out. It didn't happen, and this will not be a long-term position for me. But I feel very comfortable having it big, given the fact that I think that it's a defensive stock, and I think it should work between now and the end of the year. My third biggest position is WOW, WOW. That's been a complete disaster. Cable is blown up. I am not optimistic about a deal happening there, but I did make it much bigger over the last 4 weeks because I'm an addict. I do believe if that deal broke, they would have notified us. They have to notify us. When Target Hospitality broke and when Surgery Partners broke, we found out intra-quarter, not at earnings. So I can't imagine the general counsel letting them go to Monday to tell us the deal broke. Again, I'm still not that optimistic a deal will happen, but the setup is too good to ignore for me. It's very levered. If a deal breaks, it could easily go down, a third of its value to $2 or $2.25, and I have no idea what I'll do then. I'll probably have to sell it by the end of the year for tax losses. ABVX, I'm almost certain I mentioned that here very briefly months ago, that I had a 1% position in it because I was piggybacking the sheep of Twitter. And I ended up making that a 3% position the day before it read out. Huge winner. I'm sorry that I didn't tout it more on here, but I knew nothing about it. I was basically just piggybacking somebody. So that's now a 15% position because it's gone up 600%. I'm holding that for long-term capital gains and maybe even an M&A thing in next year. But I'm just disclosing that I own that. I put on a position, SRPT. That is a 15% position. I have no idea what I'm doing there. I couldn't even begin to tell you what my thesis is now, except that I do not think there's any real chance of that drug getting pulled from the market again after what just happened. So that was the rationale behind me buying it. I think it should be very sticky, even with another adverse event that might happen. I can't handicap what happens with non-ambulatory patients. it's so controversial. I could do 5 hours on SRPT. I'm not going to. KROS, we should find out soon what the hell they're doing with this return of capital. Again, I'm not worried about any of that, but I'm intrigued to see what the hell's going on there. And BBIO reported, that's like a much smaller position for me now. That's 7% of my portfolio, all common. I'm not at all concerned about the print that they put up. I'm very excited about the phase 3 readouts. I'm just hodling that stock, just like I'm hodling the PTGX. Those are both 8% positions, and they're not going anywhere in my book. They're just going to sit in the book. And that rounds out my big positions. ARVN is basically off my books. All I have is October 750 calls and call spreads. That did not work. That is a broken stock. I would guess that Pfizer's going to hand back Vepdeg to them. It's about $11.50 in cash. It's trading at $6.80. I don't have a thesis though. I'm not excited about their phase 1 drugs. It's going to take years for them to show proof of concept, if ever. And you're not really aligned with management or the board. And you have an activist, which is great, but the activist only owns 7%. So, yeah, sorry about ARVN. That one is, when it goes bad, it goes bad. And that one pretty much across the board went against me. And look, the stock's 680. It was in the low 8s when I first pitched it. I just lost a lot of money on options, unfortunately. And it happens. I guess to round it all out, I mentioned Vivid Seats on my last YouTube, but I told you I didn't really like it anymore because of the reverse split that they put out. And I went through a crazy mixed emotions after that YouTube. I actually made it huge, thinking that they were doing the reverse split to do a reverse merger with StubHub. And then they put out their final proxy for that reverse split. And it says they're not in any M&A discussions. They bought back no stock in the 2 months prior. And I couple that with the fact that they needed to do a reverse split. And they announced they were doing a reverse split at the end of June. And I sold every single share. My average selling price was $1.69. And it's now trading at a little bit over $1. So I lost a bunch of money on that, but it could have been way worse. So proud of myself for hitting the exit there when I did. I'm working on another name that I can't talk about. I know that's a dick thing to say, but it's true. It's a smaller company, and I don't know if or when I'll disclose it, but that's the only thing I'm buying right now. I did make WoW pretty big, like I said. So, but I'm just YOLOing there. So I hope everyone's having a good summer. And I'll hopefully do a live YouTube one of these days, or maybe not. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks as always for your support.